Here's the full script, 3,637 words. PGA Tour in crisis, Jack Nicklaus's private showdown with Brian Rolapp. An 86-year-old man with 18 major championships to his name just told the sport he built his legacy in that he is not exactly in favor of where it is headed. That man is Jack Nicklaus. The sport is the PGA Tour. The comment came at the Memorial Tournament press conference in June 2026, an event Nicklaus himself hosts at Muirfield Village Golf Club in Ohio, a course he designed and has overseen for decades. Nicklaus did not stop at a passing remark. He laid out, on record, exactly what troubles him about the direction professional golf's biggest tour is moving in. "I don't think it's a problem yet, but I think it will be if we don't address it," he said. That single sentence carries more weight than it first appears to, because it comes from a man who has watched the sport evolve for over 6 decades, from his own playing days in the 1960s, through the founding of the modern PGA Tour commercial structure, and into the current era of 9-figure media rights deals. His concern is specific: too many marquee tournaments packed too close together on the calendar, with no room left for players, fans, or the game itself to recover between them. He put it plainly, saying he hates seeing tournaments bunched too much together with too many big tournaments too close together. This is not a story about a legend randomly criticizing his sport out of nostalgia for an earlier era. It is a story about a structural fight over the future of professional golf, involving the tour's new chief executive, its outgoing commissioner, its most famous active competitor, and a business model that is under genuine financial and competitive pressure. To understand why Nicklaus's words landed as hard as they did within the golf world, it helps to look closely at who else sits inside this fight, what is actually being proposed to change the tour's structure, and why the sport is now watching closely for what comes next. Who is actually involved? 4 names sit at the center of this dispute, and each one represents a distinct stake in how the PGA Tour reshapes itself for the years ahead. Jack Nicklaus is the most decorated major champion in golf history, with 18 major titles to his name, a record that has stood since his final major win in 1986. He is not a tour employee and holds no formal authority over tour scheduling decisions. What he holds instead is a level of credibility that no current tour executive can claim. He hosts the Memorial Tournament, one of the sport's most respected non-major events on the calendar, and his opinion carries direct weight with players, sponsors, and television partners alike. When Nicklaus speaks about the direction of the tour, the golf world listens closely, because few people alive have as complete a view of how the sport has changed across generations, from the pre-television era of professional golf through today's streaming and cable rights landscape. Brian Rolapp is the tour's new chief executive. His background is not in professional golf administration at all. It comes from the NFL, where he spent years working in media and broadcast rights negotiations. That background matters enormously here, because the entire scheduling fight now underway is, at its core, a television and media rights problem dressed up as a competitive format debate. Rolapp was brought into the PGA Tour specifically to modernize its commercial structure and strengthen its position in an increasingly competitive sports media landscape, and the changes now under discussion directly reflect that broadcast-first lens on how the sport should be packaged and sold. Jay Monahan is the outgoing commissioner of the PGA Tour. His departure from the role places the organization in a period of leadership transition precisely as these scheduling changes are being debated internally, adding another layer of uncertainty to how quickly, or how smoothly, any new structure gets formally adopted and communicated to players, sponsors, and broadcast partners. Tiger Woods chairs the tour's Future Competitions Committee. Unlike Nicklaus, Woods holds a direct, formal role in shaping what the tour's schedule will look like going forward. He has been an active participant in pitching proposed changes directly to fellow players, which places him on the opposite side of this conversation from Nicklaus in terms of process and access, even though both men are ultimately wrestling with the same underlying question of how many marquee events the professional golf calendar can reasonably sustain in a single season. Together, these 4 men frame a genuine 3-way tension inside the sport: legacy versus broadcast economics, and both of those forces weighed against player buy-in. Nicklaus represents the sport's institutional memory and its competitive integrity over the long arc of history. Rolapp represents the tour's new commercial direction and its need to compete for media dollars. Monahan represents a leadership handoff happening in real time, at the exact moment major structural decisions are being finalized. Woods represents the players who will actually have to live, week to week, with whatever schedule ultimately gets adopted. None of these four men holds unchecked authority to decide the outcome alone. Final scheduling decisions run through the tour's policy board, a governing body made up of player representatives, independent directors, and tour officials. That structure means any proposal, whether it originates from Rolapp's office or from the future competitions committee that Woods chairs, still requires broader buy-in before it can be formally adopted as the tour's official schedule for coming seasons. How the tour got here. The current signature event structure did not exist in isolation from outside pressure. It was built as the tour's answer to a competitive threat that emerged when LIV Golf launched with backing from Saudi Arabia's Public Investment Fund, offering guaranteed money and a shortened, no-cut format that pulled a number of established players away from the traditional tour. In response, the PGA Tour introduced signature events as a way to concentrate its own top talent, larger purses, and strongest fields into a defined set of tournaments each season, positioning them as the tour's answer to LIV's smaller, richer events. That original signature event model relied on smaller fields, number 36-hole cut, and a limited number of tournaments carrying that elevated status. What Rolapp inherited, in other words, was a structure built quickly under competitive pressure rather than one designed from the ground up with long-term scheduling balance in mind. That history helps explain why the current debate exists at all. The signature event system solved one problem, retaining top players and strengthening media value, while creating a second problem, the calendar density that Nicklaus is now raising publicly. Any restructuring Rolapp proposes has to account for both halves of that equation simultaneously, satisfying broadcast partners who want concentrated, high-profile events while also addressing the fatigue and scheduling concerns raised by players and, now, by Nicklaus himself. What Nicklaus actually said. At the Memorial Tournament press conference in June 2026, Nicklaus did not deliver an ultimatum, and he did not stage any kind of public confrontation. He gave a measured, on-record assessment of a trend he sees as a growing structural risk to the sport. His central complaint focuses on scheduling density, specifically, the practice of clustering multiple marquee events, known within the tour as signature events, too close together on the calendar within short stretches of the season. In his own words, the issue is tournaments bunched too much together with too many big tournaments too close together. That complaint carries a second layer worth stating directly. Nicklaus's own tournament, the Memorial, sits inside the very stretch of the calendar he is describing as overcrowded. That gives him a direct, personal stake in how this dispute gets resolved, separate entirely from his broader standing as an elder statesman of the sport. If the tour continues bunching signature events close together, the Memorial itself faces a real risk of losing top-ranked players to overlapping or nearby marquee tournaments offering larger purses or higher world ranking points, which would in turn diminish the tournament's field strength and its standing relative to other events on the calendar. Nicklaus also stated clearly that he wants a direct conversation with the two people most responsible for shaping the tour's next chapter. He said he wants to sit down with CEO Brian Rolapp and outgoing Commissioner Jay Monahan to address the scheduling issue before it worsens into something more damaging to the sport. That is a specific, verifiable request, not a vague expression of general frustration with modern golf, but a stated intention to engage directly with sitting tour leadership on a clearly defined structural problem he has identified. The real plan on the table. To understand why Nicklaus is raising this concern now, at this particular moment, it helps to look closely at what the tour is actually considering behind the scenes. There are two separate, related proposals currently being shaped, and it is important to treat them as distinct developments rather than as a single finished plan already locked into place. The first is a concept Rolapp himself has floated publicly, referred to internally as a Track 1/Track 2 system. Under this structure, the tour would double the total number of signature events held across the season. Fields for these events would expand to at least 120 players, a significant increase from the smaller, more exclusive field signature events have used in recent seasons, which have often run closer to the mid-70s in size. The proposal also includes reintroducing a 36-hole cut for these events, a structural element that current signature events generally do not use, since most of them have run as no-cut fields to guarantee top players a full 4 rounds of competition. In effect, this plan would make more marquee-level golf available across a longer stretch of the season while also making those individual events more competitively open than they have been in recent years.